Welcome to the Wasting Time podcast. We are up to episode 28. I am one of your hosts, Chris. I am on the line with Nick. How's it going, Nick?
I'm good, man. Yeah, not too bad. What's been happening?
What has been happening? Well, it hasn't been that long since I spoke to you, really. So, music-wise, I can't really think of anything.
Oh, it was Duncan Hewitt's.
Yeah.
Some of his solo stuff. So a guy in your band, right, has released some.
Yeah, that's right. He plays bass in the band I play in. He's one of the dual vocals, and he's always done solo stuff. What did you think?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a nice little hook in the chorus. I'll be keen to hear some more of his stuff. Is he writing more stuff?
Yeah, he's got an EP coming out on July 2nd. So by the time we put this out, it might well be out. But so just search for Duncan Hewitt. That's Ewart, and we'll link it in the show notes, and that will be easy to find. But yeah, no, I thought it was worth mentioning just because, well, aside from being a friend of mine, I always thought he's got a good sort of lyrical voice and writes interesting lyrics.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
so
I
definitely want to support him.
Yeah, keen to hear some more, and obviously flying the flag as a northern lad as well. So I'm more than happy to get behind.
Yeah, he is from Stanley in County Durham.
There you go. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing what he's
got. Good. Pleased you liked it. Was there anything else, or should we just jump into today's guest?
So we have the pleasure of speaking to Jason Tate, who some of you might not know. He's not really he's not a musician like we have had on recent podcasts, but he is a bit of a pioneer in terms of the alternative kind of punk rock scene from a media kind of sense. So he's the founder of AbsolutePunk.net, which ceases to exist, but was replaced with Chorus FM, which he also manages. We were keen to really kind of get into some stuff with him around the world of kind of in terms of media and in the punk rock world. So here it is. Okay,
so I just want to say that we are joined by Jason Tate, who is the founder and owner of Chorus.fm. Thanks for being with us, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Are you based do you live in Portland?
Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
So, it's going to be about midday for you right now.
It's almost exactly midday. It's noon at the moment. Nice and warm outside. The sun's shining.
Nice. How's your morning been so far?
It's been pretty good. Got up, had some coffee, got a little bit of work done, and then just been getting ready for this podcast.
Nice, man. Also, I just should take this opportunity to thank you as well, because I think you've shared every episode we've done in the last couple of months on your site. So we both massively appreciate that. So I just want to say thanks for that, really.
Of course, you guys have had a lot of really cool guests, and I know since I don't really do my podcast as much anymore, I like when other people are doing interviews and getting stuff like that out there. I think that's great.
Cool. Well, I guess we first, came across you in the Absolute Punk days. Both me and Chris, I guess we're in our mid-30s now, but Absolute Punk was our kind of number one source for all that kind of punk music.
I remember going to university in 2001, and I think that's when I started visiting it a lot. Was it 2000 that you set the website?
Okay, so I'm probably roughly about the same age as you guys then. I'm 36 now.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and so I started it probably right around then. It was probably the first early versions would have been 1999, 2000, around there, when I was just kind of goofing around online with creating a little fan page for Blink-182 and MxPx and just kind of playing around with it. And then it would have been around 2001 when I went to college as well that I kind of turned it into what it ended up becoming, which was more of a website about the music scene and genre in general.
When did you get into MxPx and Blink-182? Had you been listening to them for several years at this point?
No, basically, I'd say like somewhere around middle school, I was into bands like Pantera and Metallica, and basically just listened to what all my friends were listening to, right? Like if I had a friend and they had a CD and they would put it on, I'd be like, oh, I like this now. And so I listened to like metal and had no real like music for myself. I'd listen to some stuff that my dad listened to. That's how I got in like the Beatles and Elvis. I liked stuff like Nirvana because everyone my age basically liked Nirvana at that period of time. Right. But I never had like music that was mine. I never had like a band that I considered like, oh, this is the music that defines me. And then it would have been somewhere around like the end of middle school where I borrowed a friend's CDs, a bunch of his CDs, and he had Dude Ranch, and I put Dude Ranch in my CD player, and it immediately just kind of changed everything. That was the first time I heard anything like that. I had heard music that was talking about those sort of things with this sort of style and sound, and I immediately was just like, this has opened up an entire different world to me. And then from there, I just did the thing that we did back then, start reading all the liner notes and seeing other bands that are mentioned and like who's thanked. And I saw bands like MxPx and Homegrown and all these new artists, and I was like, okay, what is this? Went to the CD store because that's what we had to do, and spent my lunch money on a bunch of CDs, and that kind of started it. And like that was when I started realizing like there's this entire different world out there. Went and saw MxPx live, and a band called the Ataris opened for them. All of a sudden I'm into the Ataris, and it was just like it was just that kind of
snowballed from there.
Snowball effect of just like, and that was when I finally kind of found this kind of like pop punk world and realized like this is the kind of music that it felt like mine, like something that nobody else and my friends were listening to at the time, and that was kind of where it started from. Okay, got it. Yeah, like I can completely relate to that myself. It's weird. I was a couple years late, even though I'm the same age as you. I was a couple years later because I was just. It was things like Billy Bragg and Third Eye Blind. I hadn't delved into this world of pop punk, and then it wasn't until What's My Age Again came out. So I'm like 2 years behind you on it, but I had the exact same experience, basically. It's interesting to see how much Blink-182 in general kind of acted as the gateway to this music for so many different people. Sure. I mean, especially anyone related to my website, it seems like there's a pretty common theme there.
So I guess getting into the development of Absolute Punk, obviously you say it started as essentially an MxPx and Blink-182 kind of fan site. When did you really kind of see it start to develop and, kind of taking up more of your time and becoming a real kind of regular thing for you?
Yeah, well, when Blink got popular, that's when my little fan page version started getting popular. And that's what I could tell a bunch of people were checking it because I'd all of a sudden start getting more email. It wasn't really a forum or anything at the time. It was just me posting up random tidbits of news I found around the internet about Blink or images, desktop wallpapers, things like that. And it wasn't until college where I kind of changed it to be more all-encompassing. And the idea behind that was, I like Blink-182, all these other people like Blink-182, but nobody's ever talking about bands like Slick Shoes and this new band called Newfound Glory that I want to talk about. And I wanted a place to share stuff like that with other people. And that was kind of where it branched into what it became. And at that point, that's when I tossed on a forum and started seeing the popularity of other people wanting to talk about music and sharing music information, news, recommendations, and that sort of stuff. And then roughly like around, I'd say it's got to be 2003, something like that. That was when I started seeing more traffic, kind of the Drive-Thru Records era, all the Drive-Thru Records bands getting popular, Warped Tour getting popular, kind of culminating then in Fall Out Boy's success. And like we were one of the first websites that were writing about Fall Out Boy, one of the first websites that were writing about My Chemical Romance, Taking Back Sunday, and that kind of wave of bands. And then as that exploded, my website kind of just got caught up in that because we were kind of the place that people were talking about those bands. We were the ones that were talking about those bands before anybody else. And that's kind of where I first realized like, oh my God, this is way bigger than I expected it to get to.
Cool. And so when, when did it really go to that next level for you? I mean, obviously you must have been spending quite a bit of time and investing more and more time I guess you were pulling in support from other people as well at some point where you needed an extra pair of hands and stuff.
So I was, that would have been my sophomore year of college, and then going into my junior year is where I realized like the website was taking up an extraordinary amount of time. Like I was spending more time on that than just about anything. And that was the time where I went to my parents and I was like, hey, so this thing, I think could maybe be a thing. So I kind of don't want to go back to college. And they rightfully like freaked out and were like, what the hell? Like, no, you can't do that. So I was like, okay. Well, can I take like a semester off to kind of like focus on some stuff? And it took a lot of prodding and basically promising I would still graduate on time and I would go back to school and I would finish, but they allowed me to basically take a semester off. And so I took a semester my junior year while everybody else went abroad basically for a semester. I moved back into my parents' basement, rebuilt a big part of the website, and it started growing at that point to be an actual business where it was making money, and I had like an actual thought that this could be something that I could maybe potentially do for a living. Went back to school, finished, and then the moment that I finished college was when I basically was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Like, I need to figure out whether or not this is doable or not, and I don't really want to go work for anybody else. And the website was making pretty good money at the time off advertising, and I figured I would see whether or not that was a thing I could do. And that would have been 2005, I think.
I get, and at this point, I guess we're artists and labels and PR kind of people coming to you to have things posted on the site at this point.
Oh yeah. That was probably the heyday of all of it. I mean, I still get a lot of email, but that was the level of email and coverage and people always wanting something that I kind of like got burnt out on after a long time. But that was the sort of stuff where anytime any release came out of any sort of artist, even tangentially related to this music scene, we would get hit up for everything and people trying to call in favors and all of that.
So at that point, did you have many other people posting on the site with you?
Yeah, at one point I think we had roughly 25 to 30 people that were doing interviews and reviews and stuff like that. And with that, it stemmed from people emailing me and basically being like, hey, I really like your website. Like, I wrote a review, like, can I post it on your website? And at first I was like, that's weird. Like, sure, I guess. And so I started like doing that. And then it kind of just blossomed into us kind of having a staff of multiple contributors and people wanting to write different things on the website. And some people just wanted to post news about bands they liked. And it was like, okay, like, go for it. And it kind of became a thing where we had a rotating cast of different people that were contributing to the website. And we've had quite a few people do that over the years now.
And at this sort of period, 2005, because I can speak from experience as someone being in bands, obviously being completely into this kind of music and stuff. Like ap.net would be somewhere that I go to instantly. Every time I'm checking the web, the internet. Who were like the main rivals at that time? Were you like pretty much leading the game at that point?
I mean, at that time, there was some other websites out there, like punknews.org was obviously someone could maybe call like the big brother at the time of that music scene. Like, they were a little bit older. They'd been around for a while. Alternative Press obviously has always been around doing things like that. There was a lot of websites that kind of like started up at the time. Like, there was other people that it felt different online in like 2005. Like, it felt like everyone was kind of just trying different things and doing things, and everyone had their own little place on the internet, and they were creating these new blogs or these new websites. And now, like, everything kind of feels centralized around like YouTube or Twitter or things like that. That's where what people are doing and talking about. Whereas back then it was like new websites were popping up all the time. And all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, who's this person? And they'd be writing cool stuff or they'd be taking cool photos. And it felt like a different era of the internet.
And that's some of on our notes here is talking about the kind of move into the kind of digital streaming era of music, which obviously you've kind of been kind of working in and seen that transition into, I guess, bands sending kind of EPs on CDs to now firing over a link, to a Spotify page or a YouTube channel, I guess, is there any other kind of impact that's had on your work over, during that kind of transition?
I mean, in some ways, it's great. I mean, I remember when MySpace first started becoming a thing. I remember purevolume.com, and I actually got to work with those guys for quite a while. And that was when the first idea of being able to put music online in a relatively easy way, an easy shareable way, kind of started getting off the ground. And now it's fantastic for things like, I don't know, if I'm talking about a band and the album's already out, it's really easy for anybody to basically go listen to it. You don't have to go to a CD store. You don't have to wait until, back then it was Tuesday, but now Friday for the album to be out like physically, and you have to go somewhere to get it. Now it's just like you can just fire up Apple Music or Spotify and there it is. Or if it's a pre-release track, it's on YouTube or it's on SoundCloud. So I think that's phenomenal, and that's super easy.
And I think, a lot of our guests have touched on this. So, a lot of the guests we've had on the previous podcasts around the accessibility of music's changed kind of perceptions from the younger, the younger generations in terms of how they perceive genres and scenes. And obviously back in our day, you'd listen to, kind of punk rock and you wouldn't listen to much else. So, you would only really listen to pop punk. But I think now, it's because music's become so much more accessible. I don't think you're kind of so confined to your box, I guess, really.
Yeah, Max Collins was saying that to us just the other day, just about how compared to when his band Eve 6 were coming up, like people really stuck to their genres, and you don't really see that as much these days.
Yeah, I also think there's an easier way to kind of walk between genres, right? So like if say you into something on my website from back in the day of like a pop punk band, you can easily go from those pop punk bands to listening to something like Paramore, to listen to Paramore's most recent album, which kind of has an 80s tinge, to all of a sudden being like, you know what, I like this. And all of a sudden you're listening to Carly Rae Jepsen, and you've just moved all the way from one of the like pop punk artists all the way to like mainstream pop. And they blend together pretty well.
In the early days for you, were you kind of, for want of a better phrase, like stuck in the sort of punk and pop punk genre of I'll admit I was certainly at the turn of the century when I was like 18, 19. I wasn't really checking out other genres. Was that similar for you, or did you have more of an open mind and you were aware?
I was probably not as aware of what was happening in like some of the more mainstream circles, because I always kind of considered myself, my tastes were like an alternative mainstream, is like the way I used to describe it. Is like I liked things that were popular. I mean, I started writing about Fall Out Boy because I thought that band could be one of the biggest in the world, and then they were the mainstream. They still are. So I was able to. Those were the kind of things that I was drawn to at the time, and so I missed like pretty big pop artists. Now when all of a sudden something like that will come on the radio or on some playlist, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of just missed that entire wave of things because I was so insular in like this music scene. But it didn't feel like it at the time because it felt like a new band was coming out all the time, or new record labels were being started up. You had Drive Through Records releasing stuff, Vagrant Records, the Militia Group, Tooth and Nail Records. Like everyone was just pumping out so much music that I felt like I was drowning in everything that I could cover, that I kind of just like sat there. Recently, though, I felt myself branching out more, and I think that just has to do with growing up and kind of my community in general, and the things that we talk about in the forums, kind of expanding outward. And there's still a lot of music coming out in those specific genres, but there's other stuff that I'm interested in. I've been into like more of that 80s synthwave kind of revival stuff lately. I'm still like a lot of singer-songwriter stuff. So there's things that I think have branched outward from where I've always liked. Like I like Dashboard Confessional. It would make sense that I would like something now like the new Noah Gunderson album. Like those things fit together in different ways. And so I don't know. I've always just kind of, if something catches my ear, it catches my ear. And when I was younger, I think I was just more into like, I don't know, that music scene.
Yeah, I guess you were swamped in it though as well, right? So
it was my job. It was everything that I was living and breathing everything about that. So
sorry to jump all over the place a little bit here, because I wanted to ask this before. So back in the day when this is kind of kicking off a little bit, or just when you started it more as a general thing about bands in that genre, like obviously you've mentioned like Slick Shoes, the Ataris. Who were some of your like other favorite bands at that time?
Time.
Just because like being the same age as you and like being a nerd about this kind of music, I could talk about that all night, basically.
Yeah, obviously, like all the drive-through bands, everything from the Starting Line, Homegrown, Alistair, Phoenix TX, Newfound Glory, all of those bands, and then it kind of slowly moved into when that whole, I want to call it like screamo era of bands, where it was like Thrice, Thursday, Taking Back Sunday, stuff like that started becoming really popular, and I got really into that. My Chemical Romance, and then I kind of shifted back into some of the pop punk stuff with like Yellow Card, Fall Out Boy, Paramore. And then when Fueled by Ramen got really big, and it was like all of those bands, it's been a switch between all of those. I would say that it's always had like a couple bands that have just had a like constant through line through all of it. You know, like I still listen to Blink-182, I still listen to Jimmy Eat World, I still listen to Less Than Jake, I still follow everything Andrew McMahon does from Something Corporate all the way to Jack's Mannequin to his new project. Like, so there's been bands that have like this constant throughput through the entire thing, that all had a start, so to say, in that like pop punk world.
Okay, what do you think of the new Blink stuff? Because I feel like I read you on the forums being quite positive about blaming it on your youth. Apologies if I've imagined that, but like, I think it's a good song. Like, I mean, I think that Blink-182 to me have always been a band that aim to write popular music, right? They aim to have something on the radio, going from Damn It and Josie to What's My Age Again to the massive hit of All the Small Things, and then even look at like Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and you have The Rock Show and First Date, which were literally written to be radio songs. So like they're a band that craves and desires to be a radio band. And I think that shifts between generations. So you have the people like me that, you know, started listening to Damn It, and then all of a sudden you hear What's Your Age Again and All the Small Things, and I loved them. But I knew people that were more hardcore like punk fans that were like, oh my God, this band sold out. What the heck? They sold out. They're on the radio now. What's going on? And then people that discovered them during that era then all of a sudden saw the First Date video and were like, they sold out. What are they doing? They're writing pop music. And like that's kind of continued on with like each new group of fans, and that's kind of what I feel like is happening again. Like I feel like I've seen this so many times of people being like, oh my God, they're writing a song for the radio, and it's like, yeah, that's what they do. Like, so I mean, from a musical standpoint, I think it's a pretty good song. I don't love it. Like, it's not my favorite Blink-182 song. I think it's got a pretty catchy chorus. I think that it makes me interested to see what the rest of the album is going to be like. But I'm not the kind of person that's immediately like, oh my God, they wrote a pop song for the radio. Now I'm angry about it. And I have seen some of that backlash from the internet in general. Yeah. Well, like I post for Dying Scene sometimes, and it was funny because I posted about that song, and just reading the comments through that, I was just having a chuckle to myself, if I'm honest. But sorry, not to dwell on this too long. What do you think of Generational Divide? Did you enjoy that one?
Yeah, I liked it for what it was. It felt to me as a song that, I don't know if it was reactionary to some of the backlash from the first single, but everything down to the artwork, to it being 49 seconds, to like it having this like, hey, we can make a punk song still too. Like it had that sort of feel, and it gives me a very Bad Religion-y-esque vibe, which is great. Like I'm glad that they can still do that kind of music. I personally don't think I would love an album full of stuff like that from them, but if both of these songs do end up on the same album, I'm really curious to see how they mesh all of that together. Like the sequencing and how that album works is really going to be interesting to watch. It's not a song that I think I'm going to come back to a whole lot, just given that it's one song at 49 seconds and you can't really play that one. You can't play that one over and over again without going insane.
So I guess we talked about Absolute Punk. Kind of where was the kind of end of that and the transition into chorus.fm?
So it would have been 3 years ago, roughly. I think April, I believe, was the 3rd year anniversary. And basically, the story with that is, I forgot when it was, when I actually officially sold the website, but I sold Absolute Punk to Spin Media somewhere would have been like 2010, something like that. It got to the spot where the website was doing so much traffic and was costing me so much money to run, and the technical limitations of how to run a website of that size was past my expertise. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm out of college. What I know about servers and what I know about the internet, my expertise has been exhausted, and I need help. And they basically reached out and wanted to buy the website. So I was like, okay, like that's what I'm going to do. That seems like the only next step. It's either that or I'm going to have to like try to raise money and go get like venture capital or something to be able to hire people that are smarter than me to do some of this stuff. And this seemed like an easier way to do it. So I did that. And working for a big company, probably a surprise to nobody, didn't really work well for me as somebody that likes to be more independent, and I don't like making decisions based around things like, well, you know what, we're going to have to put a giant McDonald's ad on the website because they're going to give us $30,000. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't want McDonald's ads like flying in on everybody. And it was like, nope, we're doing it. And it was like, well, this sucks. So I did that for a few years, and because they were also a horribly run company, as they started struggling with all of their finances and they were spending way too much money on ridiculous things, I had the opportunity to basically buy parts of the website back. And at that point I was like, okay, I'm going to buy the domain back. And when I realized like I wanted to do that, I also realized this gave me an opportunity to reset. And it was during that process that I realized I wanted to start something new. That there was a lot of baggage associated with Absolute Punk for me. There was a lot of baggage just associated with what that community kind of had become in general. And the size and scope of it was at the spot where I knew that it was not tenable for me to continue doing long term, or I was going to have a mental breakdown. I was not going to be able to do it. So I needed to step back and realize if this was still something I wanted to do, if I wanted to write about music online, I needed to rethink what the entire process looked like for my own sanity.
So how did that start for you then? In terms, it sounded like you had a bit of time off to. So
basically, like, I knew that the end of Spin was coming, and I knew an idea of when I would need to do something. If it was either going to be go get a job working at some other company, or just take some time off and not do anything, or if I want to start something similar and new. And the more I thought about it, talking with friends, talking with family, it came pretty soon. I realized that I wasn't ready to give up on my idea of sharing music and having a community of people to talk about music and things with, of like-minded individuals. And once I realized that, it went pretty quickly, and I kind of knew what I wanted the homepage to be, what I wanted to do to divorce the comments and the toxicity that can come from internet comments with the community itself, and pull comments away. And at that point, it was also like, okay, I was posting news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, basically. If news broke, I wanted to be one of the first to write about it. I wanted it up immediately. Sure. I was checking my email all the time. I was checking Twitter all the time. I was not spending as much time as I should have with family and friends. And I realized, instead, what I wanted was a website that was much smaller. It was probably never going to be as big as Absolute Punk. But somebody could read top to bottom once a day and get a good idea of cool stuff, right? So we're going to write about similar types of music, similar types of entertainment, but it wasn't going to be 60 posts in a day. It's probably going to be closer to 25, but I hope that those 25, if you like the kind of music that I like and you like the sort of stuff that I like to write about, you're really going to like it. So at that point, we're not going to be the biggest website in the world at all, but I really hope for like a group of people, we can be their favorite. And if I can find that smaller group of people that really like what I write about and really like that sort of stuff, they're reading it every day. And then on the community side, I wanted something that, again, was smaller, was more manageable, but also had pretty clear rules and expectations going into it. That this is not an everything goes kind of forum. This is a forum where we ask you to be respectful of other people and try to like keep that in mind when you're talking about things, and that is part of the entire process of building the forum, so people know that going into it. You know, like there's billions of places online that you can just go yell horrible things onto the internet. It's kind of just what the internet is in 2019, unfortunately. Yeah. But like, I don't want my platform to be something like that. So, and that was kind of the basic ideas of going into it. And then it was just kind of saying, all right, I'm rolling the dice and I'm giving it a try and I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to give it 1 year and see if I can do it. And then after the first year, it was like, okay, that kind of worked. Let's try for another year. And I've just been kind of doing that ever since for the last 3.
Pretty much full time for you, or is it just a bit on the side?
It is at this point. I'd say it's about 90% full time. Like it started probably closer to like 60-40, and I was taking freelance work and doing a couple extra projects to help pay the bills. And then as the websites continued to grow and as more people have found the website and subscribed to the website and joined up as paying members and patrons for the website, it slowly shifted. So now I'd say it's about 90-10. I still have to every once in a while, depending on the month, depending on ad sales for that month, look at freelance work and picking things like that up. But it's fewer and farther between at this point.
And you found the idea with the communities like worked presumably how you envisioned it, because obviously you can comment on the articles, but it's a different method of doing it. You've got to go to the community page first, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, there's always drama. There's always going to be internet drama and different things like that the moment you put that many people online. But by and large, I like it a whole lot better. I like being able to write on a page where if I put something out and like write an article that the article stands on its own, and like people can read like a review and that's what they're reading. And if they want comments, then yes, they're going to the community and they can see comments on that article, but they're not sitting right there at the bottom of the page and all of a sudden there's a 3,000 long comment thread of people arguing about some album review. And that's what I hated about Absolute Punk. Like I hated that somebody would spend so much time writing a review about an album and they put 2,000 words down, and then all of a sudden all anybody wants to talk about is the score and be like, well, this is a 3.6 and Drew gave this one a 7.2, so clearly you're an idiot. And then everyone just argued about it all day, and I was like, did anybody read the review? Like, is anybody actually talking about the music? And so to me, regardless, I think that's a win.
Cool. Well, we've got a few more questions here that are a bit more left field, I guess. Okay. I mean, have you had any really strange PR requests?
Strange PR requests in what way? Like people asking to put something on the website or
anything.
I mean, we get a lot of pitches for people, especially now. I don't know. This seems like a thing that just came up recently. Is all these websites just want links and they want to like be like, hey, can we write like an article on your website? And it's going to be about something and it just needs to be up there. I'm not sure what they're doing. Some sort of Google spam or something like that would be my guess. We get those a lot, and I usually post them on Twitter because I think they're funny. PR requests for like bands, nothing off the top of my head really stands out.
Too weird.
Yeah, nothing super weird.
I mean, you don't have to answer this, you don't want to, but are there any, I mean, this is bound to have happened over the years, like any kind of fallings out with bands who've reached out to you over the years who kind of, took things the wrong way, or have you had any like major... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's the hard part with a website like mine, which a lot of it is based on like my personal opinion. So a lot of it is based on how I think about something. So I mean, I can use one that it's a pretty good example because I have a great relationship with the guys now. But like Yellow Card, for example, like I loved Ocean Avenue, and had built a pretty good relationship with that band. But not a big fan of Lights and Sounds. Like when that one came out, I didn't like that album that much. Yeah, I didn't like that album that much. And obviously, like I said that, and that didn't go super great. But like, I think that a big part of it is about bands at first kind of thinking that a website like mine is promotion first and not necessarily like editorial, and that there is a big part of it that is editorial. Like, yes, if you have a new album coming out and a new song coming out, I want to write about it and I want to say like Yellowcard have a new song coming out. But if that song's not very good, like I'm also going to say that. And I think like for a while people kind of saw it as like, well, I don't know, my publicist like sent this to you, you're supposed to say something good about it. And it was like, well, like that doesn't always happen. Like sometimes I don't like it, and I need to have that. That said, like, I mean, I still talk to Ryan Key pretty frequently, and we have a really good relationship over the years. And I liked their subsequent albums a lot better. But I think that, I mean, as you were saying though, like there are with something that like this, which is a big portion of it is an opinion based thing. There have been falling outs. There have been bands that have not liked what I've said. There have been bands that don't care what I say and get very mad about different things that I've said. But I think that at this point, it's a lot less now that anybody can offer their opinion anywhere. And I think most bands and artists have a relatively thick skin. If they spend any time on Twitter and they read the replies at all, I'm assuming they care a whole lot less about some review. That'd just be my guess.
I've just remembered something. Maybe you posted it yourself. This was years ago, but I feel like there was a band who, for their merch, had a shirt with your photo on it saying "fuck Jason Tate" or something.
Oh yeah, it was Ice. It was they were. I think they go by Ice 9 Kills at this point, but they were just Ice.
Oh, was it them? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't even remember what I said. I don't remember what led to it. I said something about how I didn't like the music, and I don't even know how any of those. I don't know if any of the same guys are even in that band anymore. Like I have no idea what the lineage of that band is, but I do know every time I get that promo like email, I'm like, no, I'm not going to post about him. I'm still living that. you put my face. You sold a shirt that said "fuck Jason Tate" at Warped Tour. Kind of not going to post about your band. I don't care what you guys are doing.
Has there been anything historically that you've passed on, like you haven't covered at all, that's then gone on to be successful? Has that ever happened to your knowledge?
I can't think if there's ever been stuff that like I've passed on, so to say.
Yeah.
There's definitely been things where I was like, I don't think anybody's going to give a shit about this band, and all of a sudden they're way more popular than I expected. Then there's been times where like I feel vindicated, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be a thing, and then it doesn't end up being a thing. I'm sure I can't think of anything off the top of my head where I would say like I passed on it. I've been wrong more than like, I mean, like a good example of something like that would be, I remember hearing Paramore's Riot, and the first time I think I wrote a review about that album, and I was like, it's good, but it's pretty forgettable. I don't know if I'll be listening to this in the future. And now it's 10, 12 years later, and I still listen to that album. Sure. Nothing about like passing on anything that I was like, I wish that like in hindsight I would have been like, I wanted to be in on that band, and I can't really think of anything, because most of the time it's like, if I like it, I like it, and I don't want to trend hop, so to say. I don't want to like grab a band and be like, I know this band's going to be big, so I'm going to say it now. I'd rather talk about a band I like, and then if they happen to be big, be like, hey, that was cool. Like, I don't know, that feels more authentic to me than trying to do the opposite.
You say you still have a good, relationship with the likes of Ryan Key. Have you kind of maintained quite a lot of relationships with artists over the years, and still
I think so. I mean, there's some that I'm obviously closer with than others. There's some that I would consider friends, and then there's some that just I have casual relationships with. And if I have a question about something, or somebody asks me online like, hey, what's this band doing? I know who to reach out to.
Right.
But at this point too, it's like, as I said, I'm 36, and the trying to find breaking news or trying to get scoops and any of that sort of stuff, I've kind of left a lot of that behind. Like, a big part of me now is just like, you know what, like, when Acceptance is going to tell people that they're working on an album, they're going to tell people they're working on an album. I don't need to reach out to the band members and be like, hey, you guys doing anything? Because I know sooner or later they're going to post something on Instagram, and then they do. And it's like, okay, that's good. Like, I don't know. I feel like the chasing of scoops thing has been removing that from my daily
a lot
life
of
has
artists
been calming.
are self-serving now as well, I guess, a bit with their reach in the kind of social media channels as well. Right?
Yeah, they have people have their own ways to get that stuff out if they want to. But I think that the relationship stuff is still good because that does help for, I don't know, if like I say a big new album's coming out from an artist that I want to write about and I want to be thinking about before the album comes out, being able to reach out and be like, hey, I know you guys are working on something. Could I hear some of it? Like I kind of want to like get a vibe and then to be able to share that with some of our readers. I think that's cool. And that ends up being content that I think a lot of people enjoy.
And I assume you still get out for plenty of shows, for live shows as well?
Not as many as I probably should or would want to at this point. Like, I mean, I live in the city, so when I can and they're close, I definitely go. But also, again, 36, engaged, like spend a lot of time with my fiance at night. I mean, I'm just older. It's harder to get to shows. It's harder to like work up the idea on a random Tuesday to be like, oh God, I gotta stay out. What time are they going on again? Like, I don't know. I'm getting old with that sort of stuff. But if it's a big enough band and if it's a band that I haven't seen in a while or ever seen, like those are the ones that I'm more apt to jump out to. The bands that I've seen 10, 20 times at this point, I skip those ones now.
Definitely helps if it's on a weekend for me.
Oh yeah, it definitely helps if it's on a weekend.
Sure. What was the last show you went to?
Oh man, I can't even remember what the last show I went to at this point. It might have been the last big show was definitely Blink-182 and All American Rejects and A Day to Remember, their big festival show. That was the big,
that was like 3 years ago, yeah.
3 years ago, I think. So that was the last big show that I remember going to. Gone to a couple small ones. I saw 1975 last time they were in town. Saw, I think the Hello Goodbye tour was not that long ago as well. Hello Goodbye. I don't know. It was probably something like that.
Okay.
Well, we got a big dose in one. We've just come off the back of Slam Dunk Festival, so I don't know if you're aware of Slam Dunk.
Yeah, we posted about them. That's a bunch of bands there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a massive lineup. So we got a massive fill all in one day, so it'll fill us up for a while.
We're working in this kind of world for a few years. What are some of like the best like sort of media privileges you've had over the years? Are there any that stand out?
I mean, seeing Blink-182 and Jimmy Eat World standing on the side of the stage when I was in college was like the coolest thing that blew my mind. Like that was one of those like cool. I can't believe this is actually happening kind of things. And a lot of it, I don't know. I feel extremely privileged to like say this because I mean, obviously I started my website as like a Blink-182 fan page, but then got to the spot where bands and artists that like I deeply respected would reach out to me for different things or ask questions. Or I mean, I've had bands ask, hey, like who do you think we should take on tour? And I'm always just kind of like, I don't know, like this is not my job. Like, I feel like that's like there's a lot of pressure with that. But like I would say stuff like that still to this day makes me feel good. And I mean, even when Mark Hoppus tweets at me on Twitter, sometimes I still like have that thought of just being like, is this real life? Like, what is happening? And then he's making fun of me half the time, and I'm like, of course this is real life because I'm getting dunked on Twitter by Mark Hoppus. So, but those are the kind of things that still just kind of blow me away that it's even possible.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of Mark Hoppus, I saw. I think a friend of mine tagged us in your Instagram because you got a copy of the Plus 44 vinyl. Are you still pretty fond of that album? Yeah,
that album holds up. Like it's surprisingly holds up. It's I gave it a spin last night, something like that, and I'm surprised at how almost modern it sounds. Obviously, in today's music world, they probably would have removed more of the guitars or made the guitars sound a little bit more electronic. But the feel that album has feels oddly modern. Like feels like something that could come out right now and be relatively popular. I mean, that lead single is great. 155 is fantastic. There's some really good songs on it, and it kind of gets lost a lot of the times when I do like a Blink playthrough or whatever, but it kind of feels like it sits between some of the stuff that Blink's doing now and Blink of the past. I don't know, I still think that's a good album.
Sorry, just a real quick random question, kind of related, but just going back to the roots. What's your favorite MxPx album now that we've got quite a few to choose from?
Probably to this day, it's got to be Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo, because that was the one that really, like, that was one of the first for me from the band. And those songs I think still resonate with me the most. I do really like their new album though. Like the last one that they released was a self-titled album, was really solid. So like I'm glad that they're still cranking out music that I like.
It's funny, I think Nick and I are like the only two MxPx fans that weren't feeling that record, because yourself and everyone seemed to. And hey, like I love Mike, and like, you know, I'd like to see it received well, but you guys are seeing something in it that I'm not. But hey, each their own.
It's the nice thing about a band at that size and age, though. Like they're going to keep releasing music, and every once in a while, maybe they'll put one out that you like, and every once in a while, maybe they won't. Like those last couple of Newfound Glory albums, I wasn't really feeling. I was like, maybe I'm just over Newfound Glory. And then they released Makes Me Sick, and I actually really liked that album. And I was like, well, what do you know? I can still like a Newfound Glory album here at 36. What do you know? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's safe to say that Mike Herrera and the Newfound Glory boys never really stopped working. They're
that's true.
Got the hustle on.
Yeah, man.
Oh, 100%.
Mike just seems to keep going and going, and
he does.
I know he doesn't take all the boys on the road with him, but he's just not showing no signs of slowing down either.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was just going to say we can wrap up, I guess, really, but I guess we appreciate the time.
Yeah, can we do that? Let's do the quick fire round thing at the end. Like, so Jason, we at the end we always just do a fun. Well, I say fun, but we just do a quick fire thing, which seems to work sometimes and not so much others. So we can just chuck it out if it does. And normally the bet. Go on, sorry.
No, I was just saying those are always fun, because sometimes they work really well, and sometimes you can't come up with an answer, and you're like, I don't know.
Anyway, we'll try this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But yeah, we'll do this, then we'll wrap it up properly. But Nick, I'll let you start this one.
Yeah, and I will confess that Chris created all of this, so
are these all my questions? Okay, so you can blame me, Jason.
Held responsible for any of this. So the first question, which I think you've already mentioned, is Apple Music or Spotify?
Apple Music.
100% the right answer.
Do you want to?
It's gone. So,
do you want quick answers on these, or do you want me to expand?
Let's go.
No, quick answers, but like expand on that one, because I'm kind of on your side on that one, and like most people, certainly in the UK, it's Spotify, and it frustrates me. But go on.
Yeah, Apple Music for me, just basically because I want my entire library with me all the time, and the fact that I can add like in advance of an album to Apple Music on my computer, and then I can walk outside and that album is sitting on my computer on my phone. That means everything to me. Like that's what I want, and if I can't do that, then it isn't worth it.
Nice. Okay, we'll rush through the other ones quickly. So Blink 182 or MxPx?
Got to go Blink at this point. Just been too long, too much history with them.
Okay, the next one. I'm not sure if you're even into soccer, but it's EPL or NFL. Are you a soccer fan? Yeah,
I used to be a whole lot more. In college, my girlfriend was a massive soccer fan, so I followed a bunch of the teams, did all of that. But then over the years, haven't been as much into it these days. More of the NBA and baseball over here.
Cool.
Okay, fair. Oregon or California?
Oregon.
Loyal.
We got Dying Scene or Punk News.
At this point, I think I like Dying Scene more. I like that Dying Scene gives me more information about each artist and how I find the stuff. Whereas Punk News seems like they're 3 days late on stuff. You get 5 things, and a lot of it like is hard to actually get the information. They don't link out enough. Like I can never find, like they'll be like, hey, this band is doing this. I'm like, there's no links on this post. Where am I supposed to go? Yeah. So yeah, Dying Scene at this point.
Chris will be pleased with that.
Nice. Yeah, good answer. So Dave Buck. That's good.
Sorry, Autumn.
Most overrated band in our sort of music world right now?
Oh, in our world right now, Busted.
If we're calling them all, okay, fair enough.
Okay, most underrated.
Most underrated right now. Oh, geez. This is difficult. I'm trying to think of somebody that has released something relatively... Now. I'll say Now is the most underrated.
Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show at the moment... Probably The Good Place. Good Place, maybe Billions.
Two very different shows there. Okay. Yeah.
Two very different shows. Yeah.
Favorite food?
Favorite food? Italian.
And favorite band that you've discovered as the final question.
Favorite band that I've discovered, like just of all time. At this time, Jimmy World's probably my favorite band. I think Jimmy World's catalog is insurmountable in my mind at this point of how many albums they've released that have personally connected with me at just the right time, and they just keep cranking it out. Like their last album was great, hit me just at the right moment, still as good a songwriters as ever, and I'm already eagerly anticipating whatever they do next.
Cool.
Nice. What's your favorite song of theirs? Just real quick.
It's either 23.
Difficult question.
Yeah, I know it's really hard. It's either 23 or Dizzy. Probably give it a little bit of an edge to Dizzy.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool. I guess we can leave things there. I guess. Jason, just want to thank you so much for giving us some of your time and for all the work that you do. I know I'll continue to check Chorus FM daily as I have done for years and years. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you for a little bit.
I really appreciate it, and really like your podcast. Keep sending me the stuff when you guys are interviewing artists that are things that are in our wheelhouse, and I'll keep sharing it. And it was a lot of fun. Thank you.